Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, today joined by just two of the boys, Thacker and Kyle. And today we are talking about what we all three, I think, unanimously believe is the surprise game of the year thus far. And I think it's going to be really hard for any game to top this. And that's Metal Hellsinger. So, Kyle, I start with you on this one because I know that you're a really, really big Doom guy. I know that Doom Eternal, when it came out, that was one of your favorite games of 2020. In fact, that was one of the first games that we talked about on Side Mission to begin with, which is kind of funny going all the way back. It's crazy how we're still going over 2 years later. I don't know how we haven't been canceled yet. But Metal Hellsinger, when we first saw it revealed, it looked a lot like a Doom clone. And I feel like if you play this game, you know that calling this game a Doom clone is an oversimplification of this game's mechanics as a first-person shooter with rhythm-style combat. So, Kyle, I'm going to let you take the lead on the combat here. I think this is the best combat we've seen in a first-person shooter since Doom Eternal, but I'm curious to hear what your take on it was, because I know you really loved this game.
Oh yeah, this game was a lot of fun to really kind of experiment with. I don't play a lot of rhythm games, so
Same.
it was very new to me. This is definitely one that I think we kind of branched out on, but I'm glad we did. I enjoyed, I know it's cliche, but I enjoyed the rhythm of the game because
Yeah.
it felt like everything from environment to movement to, obviously the gunshots, reloading, everything went with the music, and it was so well done. I had a lot of, skepticism when I first saw this announced because, like you said, it did look a lot like a Doom clone.
Yes, it did.
Honestly, I think the only thing that really you could say is, ripped from Doom would be, the way that you hold the guns, you can't aim down the sights, like you kind of just, point and shoot. But I mean, outside of that, Doom wasn't the first game where, you're fighting demons. It's not going to be the last game.
Yeah.
So every first-person shooter game, just because you can't aim down the sights, automatically shouldn't be, compared to Doom, because this game felt very different. It had, a very different story. There were vastly different settings, and I really enjoyed how, every single gun felt almost OP. Like, there wasn't one. I think each
They all
person
felt
will
viable,
kind
yeah.
of. Yeah, each person will definitely have their ones that they favor, but it's not like there were, one or two guns that were necessarily bad.
Well, I think what I
Everything
loved,
felt
just to
very
add on to
balanced.
that, I think what I loved was all three of us played very, very differently. And I love that when a game can do that with its weapons, that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah. Uh, Honestly, it's like this game really just pulled a lot out of its ass, to be honest, because of the simple fact of surprising episode. We got to see a little bit of it. What was it? State of play.
Something like that. No, wait, was it the Xbox event we saw this game first? I can't remember.
It might
I
have
believe
been.
it.
I think
was
so.
free on Game
It was on
Pass.
Game Pass. I think that was the Xbox event. That was
Yes.
back when we were all disappointed about summer games, and Xbox came out of nowhere and won,
Yeah.
the summer.
Like, honestly, the game came out of nowhere. It looked fantastic.
Yes.
But it, again, as you guys said, it looked like, and we all made this joke, Doom the musical for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we all said
Oh.
that.
Like, it was one of those where I didn't really know how to feel about it, but I know I wanted to try it. And I'm glad I did. I definitely have now found a new metal band to be listening to.
So I have a question. Has there ever been a game in this kind of style with like rhythm combat with as a first person shooter? Because I feel like this is very unique. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't think that any first-person shooter rhythm game has ever been done on this level. I can say there
Yeah.
may be one or two out there, but not one that I have seen. Definitely not one that I think has been really, I don't want to call this game mainstream, but it had more mainstream audience attention, if that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying, and I think you're right there. I don't know. I feel like the concept of this game is very, very unique. I know, again, we talk about Doom Clone or we talk about Doom the Musical, as Thacker put it. I mean, it's very. I feel like Doom is one of those video games that, as great as, I think the Doom reboot and Doom Eternal, as great as I feel like both of those games were, I feel like those games sometimes get oversimplified down to, oh, you're just pointing and shooting demons and not really much of a story, but the gameplay is a lot deeper than just that. The gameplay is it's very tight. You can't really play dumb in those games and survive because the difficulty in those games ratchets up, and I think it does here as well. So the gist of this game is just, you have that meter on screen that shows the beats of the music, and you're trying to time your shots on the beat to do as much damage as you can. It's how you build up combos, how you build up fury. And I think that what we all remarked upon, and then Thacker, I'll let you, because you said you have something to add, I'll let you add after I get onto this. I love that the more you build up that fury, the more intense the music gets, the more instruments get added, and then when you get to the max level, it adds vocals. I feel like that's really deep and in depth.
Oh, most definitely. I think the only other rhythm games I can even think of for first-person shooters, and I'm not even 100% sure if they're truly first-person shooters, but Bullets Per Minute was one.
Yes.
Yes.
That came out back in 2020. The other one, I think it was I think we got a glimpse of it for a Gun Jam.
That sounds familiar.
That does sound familiar. Yeah, I feel like I've heard that before.
So I mean, it was one of those two games. Even if Gun Jam is one that we don't have yet. Even still, Bullet Per Minute kind of brought that into it, whereas now we have Metal Hellsinger and just phenomenal continuation for beat games.
Yes, I 100% agree. There's a lot to like about this game. So let's talk a little bit about our play styles. I know that I, for the most part, was rocking like the double pistols. I rocked that for the most part, and then I think my secondary, God, I'm trying to think, because I used a couple weapons. I think I used the crossbow. That was my secondary as well. I just loved having a weapon that could do AoE damage, and I just felt like against some of the bosses that was very, very useful. Against some of the enemies, especially the enemies that had shields, I guess I just felt like that was, helpful. I don't know. But I know that, like, Kyle, you used the shotgun, I think, and I was impressed with how far and how good you got at the game using that, because I had a really hard time with the shotgun, so I was really impressed with what you were able to do with it.
Yeah, I think the shotgun was actually, like, the first weapon you get.
Yes, it is.
Which I honestly, when I was listening to the music, that's the weapon I went to the most, because I felt like when, you were shooting, you could get in this rhythm of, when you shoot, you cock the gun, but it's in the rhythm of the music. So I would, shoot it, he would cock it, and then you could shoot again and keep hitting the beats.
Yes.
And so that's just why I ended up sticking with it so much, is because it was so easy for me to, like, just kind of stay in the rhythm based off of the physical cues I was getting from watching him reload with the rhythm and then aim the gun again.
I was going to say that, yeah. I thought it was really cool how all the reload animations went with the beats as well. I loved that.
Yes, that was pretty awesome. And also, a small thing that I liked was how when you're reloading, you could get a quick reload by pressing square on, the timing with the music during the reload. But when it comes to the weapons, there was one thing that I think, having some time away, I've kind of noticed that I don't want to say is a negative, but it's a little bit of a downfall. The sword and the skull weapons.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about those. I'm not gonna lie.
Yep. I just didn't touch them after the very first level because, like, every gun I got was so much better. Like, they were cool weapons, but I just after getting all the guns, they kind of felt useless, and so if they were to, possibly make a sequel, I would like to see them somehow incorporate those um a little bit more, a little bit better, so that way they, don't feel this useless, I guess.
I feel that.
No, like you're right. Like Paz and Terminus were being Paz the skull and Terminus the sword. They were cool tutorial weapons. To put it best, in my opinion, I think the two that I stuck with the most, going on the rhythm of the music, was definitely the Hounds being the double pistols. Um, I definitely enjoyed how even with the quick reload, it kept you on rhythm better. So that was definitely my go-to weapon. Other than that, I was kind of partial between either the Hellcrows being the double scythes.
Those were
Um,
cool. I liked those.
One was because of their ultimate, and the other was because even if you missed your shot, you had a chance of hitting it again because they came right back to you, and they took care of shields easy. So it was either the Hellcrows or again with Kyle Persephone being the shotgun. The reload animation for it was great, and the fact that the reload stayed on beat with the songs, it was just brilliantly executed.
Yes.
I I think the only thing I can really think of is like I don't know very many big names that were with this game other at all. Rusty, to you or Kyle?
Well, there is one pretty big voice actor that voices Paz. We mentioned the sword, Terminus, that before I move on, I do want to say Terminus, despite the fact that we didn't use it, the ultimate ability on that thing is fucking awesome.
What was it?
Oh, it's just you literally, it's just a ton of slashes in a row. Like the beats essentially triple in speed, and you literally just spam, R2, and it's almost impossible to get off beat with it. It's really freaking cool. Like I loved it. Like it was a really cool one. But Paz, see the skull Paz. Despite the fact that I didn't use it, Paz plays a really big role in this game. And what I didn't realize until I looked it up was Troy Baker voices Paz. And after a while, I recognized Troy Baker. I mean, he's one of my favorite voice actors, if not my favorite. He's done things like Joel from The Last of Us, Joker in Arkham Origins, Booker DeWitt in Bioshock Infinite. He's done so many big roles. Simon Krieger in Spider-Man Miles Morales, and he's the main villain in Death Stranding. He's done so many big roles that I guess seeing him in a game like this, can we call this an indie game? Because it's not really like a big mainstream game. Does this qualify as an indie game to y'all?
I think it kind of does, actually.
It's in that weird spot where it's like not necessarily AAA, but it's not also like a complete indie. It's like in that weird space in between.
Yeah, like an indie with AAA funding.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, because I think a AAA game this size would have been a lot more than 8 gigabytes in download file as a download file.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But Troy Baker. Oh, go ahead. My bad, Thacker.
I was just gonna add, like, for one, the engine they used was Unity. And yes, I've seen some really cool things come out of Unity. But for something like this, with this much in-depth coding, that was incredible that Unity was able to hold up to that.
The fact that they pulled this off with Unity, yeah.
Yeah, like, and on top of that, like, the Outsiders developers, like, I know they're not, like, the biggest name, but I wouldn't call this AAA. I'd lean more with you on it being kind of an indie style game.
Yeah, it certainly has that feeling. Again, it's kind of in that weird in between zone where I like how Kyle put it. It's an indie game with AAA funding, and I think that's true because I think Troy Baker absolutely kills it in this game. Like I loved his performance. It reminded me a lot of a certain Overwatch character. That we all know and love, a certain cowboy who loves High Noon. But I really thought that Troy Baker absolutely nailed this role, and I think he's the best performance in this game. This game doesn't have a ton of voice acting, though. Like, your character never speaks. So, like, the main premise of the game is, I really don't even know what to describe the main character as. This is kind of one of the story's shortcomings is, it's not an incredibly memorable story, but you're essentially trying to find your voice, and you're going through all of these different hells trying to, claim parts of your voice from these aspects of the Red Judge. And it's a really interesting story because I don't think there's more than two. Like, it feels like there's only two voice actors in this game. Like, am I wrong on that?
No, there's a couple of other smaller roles.
But as far as main characters, it feels like it's just Paz and the Red Judge. Am I tripping or no?
I think that's all it is. And for what it's worth, this game was $40.
Yes.
There was no deluxe edition. There was no season pass, DLC, any of that. It's just $40, and that is one thing that I think definitely deserves praise. As short as this game is, as small as this game is, they didn't charge $60 for it.
Yes.
Or even $70 for the PS5 version with DualSense features and everything. They charged $40, and that was one of the things that also made me want to get this on PlayStation. It is on Game Pass for free. However, I chose to buy it on PlayStation because the DualSense functions were a lot of fun to use. Shooting the guns felt so great, and I really enjoyed how this game looked as a whole.
Yes.
For a small game, especially a rhythm first-person shooter, it's not really that popular, and it looked really, really good.
Yes.
I was thoroughly impressed. I don't think that this was necessarily next-gen quality, but, I wasn't looking at this thinking, what the fuck? Am I playing Saints Row again?
That's funny. I love that.
It looked good, though. I gotta say, all around, I think that this game is worth the money. However, them bringing it to Game Pass is a big plus.
Oh, 100% it is. That is a big win for this game, being on Game Pass as well. I also like I don't know if, I guess I can't really call them cutscenes. I like the cinematic art style, too. That's something that really grew on me as I kind of had my time to kind of sit and wait on this episode. Like, I really came to appreciate that kind of graphic art style for the different cinematics. Again, I mean, this game clearly isn't a AAA game, so it doesn't have that complete AAA funding. And I think that maybe is one of the compromises they had to make, was that they couldn't really have full cinematic cutscenes. But the cinematics they do have are really, really well designed, and the art in the game is really good. Love the level design as a whole. I think the critique for this game is very, very minimal, but let's stay on the art style for a second. Thacker, I know that was something you loved from the jump.
Oh, it was beautiful. Like, you got a different sense of how each of these hells looked. And the fact that each different hell had its own different take on what it looked like. Not only the graphics within it and the art style while playing the game, but the cutscenes having that kind of like mural-esque style look to them that you would see at a museum or something. Like, it really looked beautiful, and it was one of those where you can't take away from the game without at least experiencing that and seeing the new looks of these different levels of hell that are in just new light at that. I think my biggest thing with it was it gave you a sense of, at least for me personally, it gave me more willingness to follow and pay attention to the story instead of just having pure cutscenes like we see on most AAA titles.
Y'all want to know something? I was thinking about this game earlier, kind of thinking about the points I wanted to touch on. You want to know what I think is really cool that they kind of hit under our noses the entire time in this game? How many levels are there in this game? 9. How many circles of hell are there?
9.
There's 9. Like, I think, and I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if that was maybe explained, and maybe I'm just a doofus who missed it. But I mean, we kind of talk about the length of the game a little bit because it's a relatively short game. It's not very long. It's kind of one of the compromises you make on a $40 game. It's not going to be $40 games are not typically going to be 25, 30 hour odysseys or whatever. I really think that is kind of unique about how all of the 9 levels are pretty different for the most part, and there are 9 circles of hell. So let's go ahead and get into what little critique we do have of this game, because as it's very, very clear by now, we all love this game. We all think that this game is awesome. I do wish there were slightly more weapons. And maybe that goes hand in hand with the length of the game because, I think you find the last episode, or the last episode, sheesh, I'm tired. You find the last weapon, I want to say I'm like the 5th level. Am I right on that? It's somewhere around that time.
I believe so, yes.
I think it's the 4th or 5th level.
Yeah, it's something like that. I don't know. I guess I wish there was maybe 3 or 4 more weapons to add to that variety. I like the variety we got. I guess I just wish for a little bit more. And with that, my biggest critique of this game, the boss battles. I do think the boss battles, despite being in some really breathtaking arenas, like especially the second to last level, my favorite arena in the game by far. Like those 2 big gears looking platforms that are shifting and lifting and are moving around, and it's on top of water, and you can't be in the water, and that you're fighting that aspect. And it's just a really, really cool arena. But there's not a lot of variety in the boss fights. So, Kyle, I'll let you take it from here. Just kind of give me your basic critiques of this game. I know, again, we like a lot of this game, but there are some things that definitely could be improved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing. I think with a game like this, especially seeing the enemy variety and, all the different ways you can go about, taking down your enemies, especially like with the takedowns. And that was another thing that this game, I think, people want to say it kind of ripped from Doom was the takedowns, but also it made sense because it went with the rhythm of the music. So it was almost like a cinematic, a short cinematic scene. When you've got a lot of creativity like that, seeing the same boss fight over and over really kind of stumps you because it's like, I see where you're putting in 110% over here, but why did I get literally just the same boss with different attacks all the way up until the end? And the final boss fight was awesome. I thought the final boss fight was really cool.
Really cool.
I'll let Thacker talk about that, but the rest of the bosses were just kind of the same, and I gotta say, I was a little disappointed by that. The arenas were definitely cool.
Yes.
It sucks because I want to love everything about this game, but that was one thing I think that I just really, I don't want to say I didn't enjoy, but by the time I got to like the 4th one, I wasn't surprised with what I was seeing. I was like, I know I'm about to fight, let's just get this over with kind of thing. And the first and second boss, it was just like, whoa, who am I going to go against? And another critique that I have is definitely the lack of quantity in weapons.
Yes.
I would like to have had maybe 1 weapon for each level.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, I think that there was, especially when, the sword and Paz are not as useful as the rest of the weapons, you're really limited to, 4 or 5 weapons?
Something like that, yeah.
And that's not really a large, amount of experimentation you can do in a game that seems to pride itself on it. I mean, the whole game was experimental. Like, this is very, very, unique, and I've got to praise them for that, but I would have liked to see more, weapon variety, or even if they were to, drop some free updates, add a couple more levels, you could give a couple more weapons. Another thing I thought was cool was the tournaments.
I was gonna
They
add
were
that because I feel like that adds a lot of replayability to the game.
Yes, I think that it was cool that they didn't just send you back through the same level, but with, harder stipulations. It was an arena, and you had specific objectives to do, and none of them were really too hard. I beat all of them after, like, I would beat the level, and then I'd just do all three of the trials, and I beat the game with all of the trials done in about 2 days. Um, but after doing all of that, I felt like there also could have been a little bit more variety in the trials because while I enjoyed that I wasn't just playing the same level over and over again, I, by the time because there are three trials for each level, by the time I got to the, fourth level, I was a little tired of just, sitting in arenas and killing enemies over and over in different ways. I would have liked maybe some different objectives to do, or maybe some, you know, maybe linear levels, short linear levels, and not just an arena. I don't know. I love this game for what it is, but it definitely has a couple of shortcomings.
I can agree. One of which that kind of, and I know earlier in this episode I kind of praised Two Feathers, the main artist group behind the music on this. I wish there was just a little bit more variety of music in this. Granted, I it was really cool to see this band collab with some really big names for metal. You had like Randy Blythe, who is from Lamb of God, literally in like one of the first songs for the entire game. You've got Michael Michael Stan from Dark Trinity. I'm having a stroke here. Tranquility, from Dark Tranquility. It was really amazing to see this. One that I know all of us have heard of this band, um, but believe it or not, they got Surge from System of the Down for one of the songs in this.
Oh, that's cool.
I
It
know
was the song No Tomorrow. I think that was the uh
Yeah, it was the final boss fight. When we did the final boss fight, I noticed that because I was like, "Yo, that's Serge Tankian from System of a Down." I know his voice
right?
anywhere. I'll tell you that right now.
Like no, it was really cool to see Two Feathers collab with some of these really big names, and they even had their own song in the game as well, being the song "The Hellsinger." I thought that was cool. Again, personally, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more variety with the music. Um, and as we have all touched up on, I really wish there was more variety with weapons. The
Yeah.
weapons we got, fantastic design, great use, but again, having those six weapons, two of which you only really use in the tutorial and the first level, I wish there was just more for it.
Yeah, I wish they would have incentivized those a little bit more. I know there's a trophy for both Paz and for the sword, but I guess I wish they also would have incentivized those a little bit more because the sword, for example, you always have that equipped. It forces you to go into every level with that equipped. And Terminus is a really, really, really cool weapon. I guess that just sometimes I really forgot that it was even there. And considering how much they harp on it in the beginning, I don't know. I just felt like at some point, I just really forgot that it was even there. I will say the biggest way that I can praise this game is that I was really worried early on that I would spend most of my time playing it staring at like the beat bar, trying to make sure I hit those beats perfectly, and the way I know this game executed its plan and its game style perfectly is because of the fact that I learned eventually to just listen to the beat of the music and not even look at the bar. And I think that if a game like this can pull that off to where you can eventually learn to not be staring at one part of the screen and to instead, focus on the beat of the music and learning that way, I feel like this game executed it's styled perfectly, and I absolutely loved it. I do think that there is absolutely a desire for more content, but as Kyle, as you've pointed out, and we've talked about this a lot, I don't think that the desire for more content is coming from a place of, oh, what we got wasn't enough. It's coming from a place of, we really liked what we got, we want more now. Thankfully, this game looks like it's setting up for a potential sequel, and it 100% earned it, 100% deserves to get a sequel. I hope that we see that relatively soon. It probably won't be until late 2023 at the earliest. I would say probably 2024. But I do hope that we get a sequel to Metal Hellsinger because this was a really, really, really good game. Definitely the biggest surprise of the year so far. So that's going to go ahead and wrap us up for this episode of Side Mission. As we've pretty much talked your ears off about already, we're now no longer just on Spotify. We are on everywhere where you get your podcasts. Just make sure when you search Side Mission Podcast, do not click on the one that says 94.7. That is from the older days of Side Mission. You want to look for the one that has myself, Kyle, and Matt on the graphic as our favorite video game characters. Kyle looks like that dude from the Legend of Link games, and Matt looks like that idiot from the Kingdom Hearts games, the stupid-ass, cringy games. And I'm on my character's from one of the best games of all time, Bloodborne. So it's awesome. All jokes, of course, but just make sure you click on that one. That is where all of our new episodes are. Those are how you can support us. Listening and clicking on those really helps us out, and we really appreciate everyone that does do that. You can also follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can follow us on TikTok under the same name, and on Facebook at Side Mission Podcast. They're all super easy to find. They all pretty much use, I want to say, the same profile pictures. I could be wrong on that. Am I? Pretty sure they all use the same profile pictures. Yeah, they all use the same profile pictures. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, bet. So, yeah, they all use the same profile pictures. They're all super easy to find. You can follow all four of us, all three of us that are here, along with Matt, who decided to skip this episode, that fucker. But you can follow all of us as well on social media. We're all annoying as hell, so just be prepared when you follow us. Just know what you're getting into. But that's going to do it for our episode for Metal Hellsinger. For Kyle, for Thacker, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.